The skill set required to become a great hotel receptionist is not a long list. Not when you simmer it down to the bare minimum. There are, of course, a heap of things it's good to know about for any profession: first aid, karate, plate spinning. But in the esteemed view of the hotel club, you should press pause on all of those until such times as you've learned those which we'd recommend. This module is about communication skills. Yes, I'm talking about those 2 words that everyone puts on their CV always, no matter what. What does it actually mean though? Let's find out. So communication skills can be divided into 2 categories: verbal and written. Non-verbal is another category all on its own that I'd love to cover at some point, but for the sake of today's lesson, we'll just look at those 2 and let's look at verbal first. Verbal communication is the transmission of information, thoughts, ideas, and feelings through spoken words. It should be understood that good verbal communication is very much a 2-way street and that it's appropriate to be a good listener too, which we'll get to. As a receptionist, one's words, tone, and message must always communicate that you are here to welcome and to help. Of all the members of staff at a hotel, they ought to communicate the most formally, and there are 2 good reasons for this. Firstly, formal communication is more automatic. You don't have to think about what you're saying. You simply rattle it off like lines in a play you've been touring for 2 years. "How can I help you, sir?" is a sentence that should be as natural as breathing to a hotel receptionist. Or madame. Secondly, you never know who you're talking to and how they like to be spoken to, so formal is just a safer bet. By all means, if you get to know a guest, or they ask you to, then dial down the formality. Otherwise, it's Downton Abbey all the way, I'm afraid. You should be ready with useful information at all times and cut to the chase of every interaction. Nobody approaches a reception desk for casual banter. If someone asks how many rooms are available, you reply yes or no, the floor, the category, the price, and ask if they'd like to book right now. If casual banter occurs, then brilliant, but never at the expense of good service. When it comes to conflict resolution, the only approach is a sincere apology and the taking of ownership. "I'm so sorry that you've had that experience, ma'am. Let me get that solved for you at once." Finally, you'll have people from all over the world, so be open to the idea that you may have to speak slowly and clearly or even use an app to communicate. It's tough enough being somewhere you don't speak the language without someone who's supposed to be welcoming you alienating you by acting as though your mother tongue is an annoyance to them. A hotel should emanate cultural tolerance like a wing of the UN, and in that analogy, the receptionist is the Speaker of the House. When it comes to written communication, a good receptionist should be able to call on theirs for any or all of the following: emails, message taking, guest correspondence, social media engagement, reports, policy communication, and documentation. Emails are as much about tone as verbal communication, and the rules are the same. You don't know who you're speaking to, so give them the full butler treatment, whether it's to confirm a reservation or to answer an inquiry about availability. Message taking is all about the details. You'll need to develop a shorthand you can switch into if needs be. Someone says, "Tell him I'll meet him at the Chinese on Abernathy Street at 7 p.m. tomorrow," becomes Chinese Abernathy St. 7 p.m. Tom. Correspondence is a very particular type of communication that lives on in fancier places, such as those where there's mints on the pillow and lemon water in the lobby. They tend to be handwritten notes to regular customers, guests, celebrated individuals, newlyweds, and so on and so forth. The way I've seen them done is drafted on a computer, written up nicely by hand, and signed by the general manager or owner. Social media engagement falls under the category of answering reviews in a way. You might, as a receptionist, take on the duties of social media posting for your establishment, but it's by no means in your wheelhouse, more of a marketing gig. Though it is a fine way to climb the professional ladder in any institution, as it tends to be work that not many people are interested in doing at all. Receptionists are ideal when it comes to engaging on social media, however good, bad, or ugly. It's basically the software version of the communication you do from behind a desk, but instead of a disgruntled guest wandering up to you to give out you have someone commenting on your photos saying there was a draft in their room. And it's the same approach really, but typed, and you'll see it will be appreciated. Policy communication. "Sorry, toilet currently out of order," is usually handled by receptionists. The lower end of this spectrum is biro on a post-it note, but it's better delivered on something laminated with a logo. Any classy joint I've ever worked at tends to have a library full of them ready to go for any situation. Any place you work that doesn't have one, creating one is a great initiative for you to take. As with policy communication, the same with reports and documentation. The information is key and the formality is simply a distraction. On these occasions, it's very important for a receptionist to simply get to the point. The time thing happened, who it happened to, etc. Of course, I should caveat all of this by reminding you that while I wouldn't rely on AI language models for this, they are great to lean on if you're not feeling particularly creative on a given day. That's it for the communication skills you'll need to develop. See you in the next module, which is on customer service.